All right, business owners, are you looking to be more profitable in your business? You are so in for a treat. My new friend, Tyler Martin, shares an incredible wealth of resources and information about how he serves customers and clients just like you and I. But also, he just gives so much wisdom about what he's learned along the way, businesses that he's been a part of, and things he would have done differently if he could go back. Don't want to give anything else away. Here's my friend, Tyler. Welcome to Market Mavericks. I'm Matthew Eford. Join me as I speak with leaders who are redefining industries in every corner of the market. From startups to established businesses, we'll uncover the strategies, challenges, and insights that drive success. Get ready to be inspired by the Mavericks who are shaping the future of business. Welcome, everybody, to Market Mavericks. I'm your host, Matthew Eford, and I'm so excited to have my friend here with me, Tyler Martin. Tyler and I met. I was a guest on his podcast, and I'm so excited for him to come on mine and for us to be able to share and to get more of his story. Before we do that, before I bring him on, I've got I want to read this from one of our sponsors, Lighting Pros, one of our businesses. Are you ready to brighten your future? Join Lighting Pros franchise. As the leading name in premium outdoor lighting solutions, we're looking for passionate entrepreneurs to light up homes and businesses nationwide. Whether you're looking to solve your all-season winter blues, or you're looking for a growing year-round opportunity, with our proven business model, comprehensive training, and ongoing support, you'll be set to shine in no time. Low startup cost, high demand, and a glowing reputation, Lighting Pros is your path to success. Visit lightingprosfranchise.com today and spark your new career. That's lightingprosfranchise.com. Let's illuminate the future together. Tyler, thank you so much for being here, man. I'm so excited. For those who don't know you, tell us what you do. What line of business you're in? Obviously, you're podcasting. That's how you and I got to know each other. But what's your kind of day job?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much for allowing me to be on your show. You were so gracious in coming onto my show and shared so much knowledge. I'm honored to be here. So I want to start with that. In terms of my business, I have a business. The name is CFO Made Easy. And what I do is fractional CFO services. I'm kind of the person that sits in between a CPA who typically does your tax returns and then a bookkeeper or an accounting team that typically puts together the history, the past.
Okay.
And I sit in that middle and I help the business owner typically, or a small leadership team, look ahead, think about their finances and their business strategy in a looking ahead way.
I love that. Okay, let's dive right in there, right? I mean, we have so many of our audience around the world that are listening to this. They would consider themselves a small business owner. They've got a team, maybe 20 or less. They're a solopreneur. They're trying to build a team, or they're a entrepreneur. Right? They want to jump into business ownership. They have this desire to get into business ownership. What an incredible resource you provide. Let's take it kind of one step at a time. Number one, it sounds very expensive. Help me understand the value there. Disprove that myth of a fractional CFO. How that can assist for a business owner like myself.
Yeah, and it definitely just depends on the size of business, right? So, like, if you're a solopreneur, probably wouldn't make sense. Hopefully, you have a robust bookkeeper and maybe like a business coach or a mentor that's kind of gluing all that together in terms of the strategy and where you're taking the business.
Sure.
Where I kind of tend to step in, I'm probably going to most be helpful to someone doing seven figures or more.
Nice.
I could say my sweet spot is kind of in that $1 to $10 million revenue range.
Okay.
Often what you see in that stage is business owners aren't really thinking about strategy. And there's the common saying of, what got you here isn't always
Yeah,
the
that's
thing that got you
amen.
clean. Yeah. So basically the challenge has changed. The zeros increase. The number of people that you're overseeing changes. And so that's where the strategy comes in. And the beauty of that word fractional, a lot of people don't know what it means. It's really just a part-time resource.
Cool.
And it really can be up to the level of what your company needs. So maybe a company that's 10 million is going to need more fractional help than a company that's 1 million. So it really can fit in with the size of business that you are from a budget and an economic standpoint of the cost of it. And the last thing I'll say, like many services, this should have a return for you. So you should be able to quantify that. wow, since I've had this fractional CFO, my business has grown by X percent, or I no longer have cash flow issues wondering how I'm going to make payroll, or, there's like a myriad of different things where you should see that value. And it's like, yeah, this is making sense.
I love that. And I love the perspective of this is a resource that you can use on an as needed
Right.
basis. So
Right.
as my business scales, this resource can scale instead of
Right.
I've got to hire a CFO to help me. This is what a fantastic opportunity for somebody to get in with somebody like you. So Tyler, what is your background? How long have you been doing this? How did you start this? Let's go back to the beginning of the fractional CFO days. What did that look like for you?
So should I start when I was like 2 or 3 or what? No, I won't. I won't put the audience to sleep. So let me start with where my career journey started. So I started out as a CPA, or I became a CPA, and I was going to become a partner of a small local firm.
Nice.
And I have my family, no one is an entrepreneur,
Okay.
no entrepreneurial, unfortunately. My dad was a very hard worker, ran a grocery store for, I think, 40 years.
Okay.
Hard worker, 6 days a week, 13, 14 hours a day, but nobody really to encourage me in terms of that going into business for yourself. But one day I woke up and said, you know what? I want to start my own practice, and didn't have any family support. They thought it was crazy. And I went and left my job. I was making back then, it was actually really good money, about $150,000 a year, with the intent of becoming a partner, and left it with zero clients. Like
Oh, wow.
literally,
I
I
love
didn't
it.
take anybody's
Yeah.
clients, nothing. I mean, I just went and I was staring at a white wall. I rented a little suite and I was staring at a white wall daily for probably the first 3 weeks, trying to figure out where I'm going to get clients and talking to that wall and hoping someday it'd talk back to me, which it never did. But 5 years later, I had 200 business clients,
It's
and
amazing.
I had built a practice. Now, in that journey, one of my clients, which was never the intent, I became really close to. I liked him. We connected. We did things together. We golfed together. We did activities together. And I helped him start an engineering services company as a CPA. And, he's always picking my brain for different ideas to grow his business. About 2 years into that relationship, he says, "Hey, do you think you'd ever want to come and take a piece of ownership and be part of this, be part of it, and we can grow it and sell it someday?" And I said, "You know what? If I could market my practice and get the right price for it, I'd be very interested in doing that." Long story short, ended up selling my practice 6 years into it, went and joined him. About 2 years into doing that, he really wasn't actively involved in the business like I was hoping he would be. So
Okay.
we kind of worked out a little bit more of a split where I got more involved in the business and actually ended up leading it for the next about 8 years out of the 10 that I was there. We grew it to, under my leadership, we grew it to 25 million a year in revenue and
Wow.
ultimately sold it. And so after that was done, I'm going to get to a really long answer here, so I
No, no, this is
apologize.
great.
After we sold it, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? I don't want to work for $1 billion company that just bought us. That's not my roots. My whole career has been small business. I love it, passionate about it. It fires me up. I just literally did a podcast with a guy that makes $2 million a year scooping poop. I
It's
mean, is that
amazing.
exciting or what?
Yes, that's so good.
It just blows your mind. So then I decided what I'm going to do. So I decided, well, I think I'm going to do business coaching. I have a lot of skills. I've been doing this for many years. I don't want to go back into tax. It never fired me up. So I did business coaching for about 2 years, and I built a really nice practice, but it didn't fuel me, to be honest, Matthew.
Okay.
It just didn't fuel me. Like I didn't, I'd start to do business coaching and I'd lead people back to finances, and we
Yeah,
talk about
sure.
finances. And I said, you know what? Do what you love doing. You love to lead with numbers. You love to make that easy to understand for people, hence the name CFO Made Easy. You want to break it down in plain English. I used to take a lot of pride when I did taxes and not being a tax geek. Like I wanted people to find it approachable in terms of how I explain things. I really tried hard to do that. And I think I do that okay, hopefully better than okay, but I try my hardest to just not be a spreadsheet nerd that just is going to put you to sleep in numbers.
Sure.
It's breaking it down into core principles that are easy to understand and action that you need to take. So that's what I've been doing now for multiple years. I love it. It's still got a flavor of business coaching to it, but it doesn't lead with business coaching.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, sure. But you're able to make a dramatic impact, right? I mean, you're able to provide, and I appreciate you going through the history because you're able to provide all of that history, all
Huge.
those businesses that you've invested in terms of your own personal investment or that you're running. or that you were working with from as a CPA accounting side, or as you're coaching, and now that you're still coaching, but you're bringing the financial, the numbers, which I mean, so many business owners struggle with, right? I mean,
Big time.
it's not normal. It's not. I love Michael Gerber's E-Myth Revisited, right? We have
Yeah, for
so
sure.
many entrepreneurs that get into business ownership because they love the thing that they do and they want to make a business about the thing that they love to do. I love to make wood tables, so I'm gonna make a business around making wood tables. And then I don't know how to run a business, right? But this is a fantastic resource for somebody who's in that kind of $1 to $10 million range. I love that distinction because that provides some clarity, right? I'm at 800,000 a year. Somebody listen to this. I'm at 600 to 800,000 a year in revenue. How do I get to a million? Well, I need to continue to grow my business. I need to continue to invest in my systems. And now I know what's a next step as I break into the million, 1.5, 2 million range. Okay, I need to reach out to Tyler. I need to find something that somebody can come alongside me and help me understand some of these numbers. So when you're consulting with somebody at CFO Made Easy, that they're coming on board with you, talk us through kind of what do you typically find in businesses, somebody who's not there yet. Let's give them some advice as they're trying to break into that seven-figure mark. What's some things that you see at the $1 to $10 million range that could have been fixed earlier when they're 500,000 to a million?
Yeah, I think the biggest one that stands out is delegate. Well, two things. One, I'd say delegation is a huge one. So, when we start out as solopreneurs, we own everything. We oftentimes feel like we're the only ones that can do it right. And it's really hard for many people to let go of that. Even as they hire people, they're instead of like empowering someone to do whatever aspect you're hiring them to do, you let them do pieces of it. And then you get to a point where they only can do so much and then they give it back to you and then you're finishing it. I have a client like that right now. It's a family run business and they don't feel they can find someone to answer the phone and be polite. And it's like, dude, like, yeah, you can trust me. Like,
You
I
can.
mean,
I promise you can.
yeah, they're out there. It's not that, this is not that difficult. But that's the mindset, right? Like their mindset is, no, in our area, it's really hard. And so I think delegation is a huge one. And then the other equally gigantic one is just finances in general. People generally don't get excited about finances. They don't go, "Oh, great, I get to do my bookkeeping tonight," or "I get to," or my bookkeeper, I'm going to ask him where these things are categorized, or why it says I'm losing money, or why it says I'm making money and I have no cash. They don't usually like get into that. They just avoid it. They delegate it to someone else in this regard, and but they don't really get involved or understand it. And I think that's a big mistake because when you start to get into that, when you do break over to that seven-figure number, if you don't have some of these foundational items, it's going to make it that much harder to try to grow from
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, it's a fantastic point. It's so much easier to handle that now than it
Right.
is there, right? That
Right.
so much. Everybody says that you have a business structure, you just don't know it. Some people
Right.
have been intentional with their business structure. Some people it's fallen into place. It's better to be intentional to have those kind of conversations. So a small business owner sitting here, they're listening to this and they're feeling a little convicted. They're like, hey, I don't really know any of my numbers. What is the next step for them? Well, is it scheduling a time with their bookkeeper and or their CPA if they don't have a bookkeeper, hopefully they do, but is it scheduling the time with that person? Is it finding a business coach if they're not quite to that $1 million mark, but they're wanting to get better infrastructure? What are some of the questions they need to be asking when they're meeting with somebody?
Yeah, I think in terms of numbers, I think you have to be careful with bookkeepers. Nothing against bookkeepers, but many haven't really gone through formal training. So I would say, in my experience, 7 out of 10 bookkeepers really aren't doing justice to the level of care they're doing in the bookkeeping. So I'd say that's the first thing. Make
Okay.
sure you have a really good bookkeeper and make sure that bookkeeper's keeping things up to date, giving you timely information, making sure things are categorized correctly. Actually look at what they're giving you and don't be afraid to question it.
Sure.
This, the first time you look at a balance sheet, it's the way to show how much cash and bank you have and other assets. It looks a little foreign. The third time you look at it, you start to see, oh, cash is up top, fixed assets are the next one, liabilities are and you start to get a little more comfortable or have them explain that to you how it lays out. If you do that 10 times, you're not going to be an accountant, of course, but you're going to understand the basics. And I'll give you a true story. I had a client come to me once, and I always do this. I usually will go over their financials with them
Sure.
online. Usually it's QuickBooks Online. And I noticed this client has a negative $100,000 in their bank account, and they have a bookkeeper. And I'm either thinking, wow, this client's really going to be in a challenging spot. Let me not be the best client
Sure.
in terms of being able to pay me, or we got a problem. So I go to the meeting, and I pull up the balance sheet, which is where cash is shown, and I say, hey, I'm wondering, do you really have a negative $100,000 in your bank account? Well, of course not. We always have $50,000. I said, well, if you look here, for the last 19 months, it's been showing you have consistent negative amounts. And they go, oh my gosh, this is not correct. That's the very first line on the balance sheet. It just shows you they never even looked at it. And
Yeah.
in all fairness, their bookkeeper was always catching things up and never sending them reports. So, in fairness to them, they probably haven't never had a chance to see it.
Yeah,
But
sure.
these are the things, the basics you should do. Getting back to your question, is you should really be looking at those reports. You really should have a bookkeeper. And I'm a fan, just to take one other level of this. I think delegation is good, but one thing I don't want people to get the wrong message here. You also should still understand in the early stage of your business how to do things. Like, don't just completely delegate it and then assume it's done and never look at it.
Yeah, it's
That's
a
dangerous.
great point. Yeah.
Yeah, I want you to still understand how to do the aspects, because that's part of making good decisions. And then as you get bigger and bigger, you can get less and less involved.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's a fantastic distinction, right? That's one of the things Michael Gerber talks about in
Yeah,
E-Myth Revisited. We've said that a couple of
yeah,
times now. This idea of dumping, right? We get to hire somebody and we're like, oh wow, somebody else could do this, and we just, instead of delegating and equipping and training, we just dump this role on them. And rarely are they actually equipped to do the role that we've said, unless we actually train them, follow up with them, hold them accountable, all of those things.
right. And then when something goes wrong, which invariably it does, AR, I mean, I've seen so many horror stories like this. AR hasn't been recorded for 6 months, or I had a client the other day was leaning too much on an employee. Employee hadn't been updating the estimates. They were sending out estimates to clients, hadn't been updating them that they were complete. So they weren't actually doing their billing
Wow.
for the ones that were complete, and they were behind by like to the tune of $200,000. Well, I told the client, I was nice to him about it, but I said, this isn't the employee's fault, guys.
Yeah.
We don't have a check and a balance, and we've got a problem. We got to fix it.
Yeah.
And it isn't the nicest conversation to have, but it has to be accountability, even on an owner level.
Yeah, I completely agree. Right, and it's part of the role as the owner. You're the one that's ultimately responsible for it. The
Yep,
buck stops with you. And I love that
yep,
distinction.
yep, yep.
So when you're working with somebody, that are they hiring you? Is there a team that you work with? Where's your business structure now? CFO Made Easy. What is kind of the makeup look like at this point?
Yeah, it's a great question. At my point in my career, people are only going to work with me. Like, I have no desire to be a multi-million dollar fractional CFO firm. Probably could go in that direction. It's just not
Yeah,
where I'm
sure.
at in my life. I value and really frankly get excited about working with business owners like that. It just fires me up.
Cool.
So they'll always work with me. Now I do have a few people that work behind the scenes. I have a podcast person because I do a couple podcasts. I have two bookkeepers. I have a social media person. So I do have some people that support me. But in terms of the interface, it's really important you always, interface with me directly. I'm just a big fan of that model, especially at this point in my career.
I love that. So when you look across your career,
Yeah.
one of the questions I love to get from guests is we love to learn from other people's mistakes, right? We've all made them,
Yeah.
but and this is not let's air all your dirty laundry, but this is let's take CFO Made Easy. If you want to kind of focus on that business over the last several years, what's a mistake that you made within that organization that you've learned from, and what's something that how have you been different since then?
Yeah, I think as I progress through this is just being more clear and focused as far as creating value. I think it's really easy when you work with a client and you kind of just listen to all their problems, and you're just scattered in terms of, because they're throwing a lot of things at you and you're scattered and you're not really sticking to what you're going to deliver on and what you're going to create value for them. So I
Sure.
think if there's one thing I've really had to improve on, and as a mistake I made, is just not from day one being ultra focused in terms of how I can help them, what I'm going to do to help them, and then staying on track and doing that. So I would say that's the biggest one, because it's really easy in services in particular, any service really. I think you can get off track pretty quickly if you
Yeah.
allow yourself to.
Yeah. And I think that's an excellent point, right? The scope creep. It
Yeah.
happens in any project. And a lot of times, at least what I find, as a goodwill person, like I have a heart for people just
Right.
like you, right? And you want to help, and you see, but there's this little thing, and I could help them in that. I know I could, but what happens is then we get so thin, right? When we work on projects, we do a lot of outdoor lighting, right? And we get clients that call us and say, "Hey, when you're here, can you also do this?" We've gotten so much better at saying no to that because it's outside of the scope of what we're doing. I want to be hyper focused in doing this well, and if I can't do this well, then I shouldn't be doing it. That's really important to be able to say no because every no to something is a yes to something else, which is
Right.
important.
Plus, the other thing you just said, we like servicing people so much. It's so against our grain, but the fact that we stay more focused, we're actually servicing them better. We're providing a
Amen.
better service, probably more efficient, more cost effective, even because that's just what we're really, really good at. And so, yeah, the way you said it was so perfect. I mean, it
Uh,
just adds such value.
I love that. Well, Tyler, tell me about you as a business leader, as a business owner. How have you leveraged this idea of mentorship? Right, we talk about that a lot with young entrepreneurs and throughout their career, finding mentors, leveraging that to advance your career, advance your business. Talk about you as Tyler. How have you done that? What does that look like over your life?
Yeah. So, when I started my practice, I had reached out to another CPA that was selling. He actually had a course, and I was able to interact with him. And that is one of the things that helped me build my practice faster.
Yeah,
It
cool.
was such a tool that was against the grain of what every other CPA was doing to build their practice, and I just followed his methodology and worked great. So that was the first thing. Then the guy that I ended up running his business or taking a piece of his business and running it, he became a mentor to me. I had a hard time managing people originally. When I took over the company, I think there were like 20 people that I was managing, and we had like 100 consultants out in the Bay Area.
It's amazing.
And I was a horrible manager. I'm a short guy. I'm like a little Napoleon, running around commanding people, and people don't respond to that. It
Yeah,
took me
sure,
a while to figure that out, but he had to take me aside and go, "Hey, dude, it's not really what you say; it's how you say it." That whole
sure,
spiel, and
sure.
it's you want people to resonate with what you're doing and what you're saying, and what's working. What you're doing isn't working because we had a fair amount of turnover, and fortunately, his general conversations sank in, and I'm a good leader now. I hesitate to say very good, but I'm getting really close to that. I mean, I'm a lot more understanding of people. I'm not managing people to what I expect at the level that I expect of myself. And I think that's a big one is that everybody's going to have their own way of get to things. And as long as they're doing what you need them to do and you guys are both on the same page, that's going to work. But I used to be like, hey, if I'm going to work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, that's what you should do
Yeah,
too. So,
yeah.
so that was I think that was one of my big challenges.
I
And
love that. That
but
when what
I could keep going on with
No,
mentors.
no, that's great. And I appreciate that. I appreciate your vulnerability and your willingness to share in that. One thing that I find really helpful in that for the audience is this idea of it's not just what you say, it's how you say it, right? That
Yeah.
if we're building a business, we're leading people. We have to lead people, and every business grows based on. But I'm in a mastermind group here in the Atlanta, Georgia area, and we've got businesses from a couple of million to 100 million, right? We've got
Wow.
we've got some incredible
Wow.
organizations that are there, and within that group, consistently, man, the issues that come up are people and systems
Right.
across the board. It's like, okay, you're doing $2 million, okay, you're doing $25 million across the board. You typically run into those issues. And so I love that distinction for helping us. Okay, so when you look at you as a manager, as a leader in that role, what advice would you give to a younger you or a younger manager? Speak kind of to that person, to the solopreneur who's just hired a couple of employees, or to the small business owner who's putting together a leadership team. What advice can you give to those people?
My number one thing would be people. hear things, to things differently. Not everybody this was is the same. And as a young person, young leader, I used to think, well, I thought I was being fair. Everybody's getting treated exactly the same way. Everybody's, if I'm going to bully people, everybody's going to get bullied equally.
Sure.
Obviously bullying at all doesn't, you shouldn't be in your repertoire, but the treating people a little bit to what resonates with them is really important because they hear things differently. They respond different ways. And I feel like that's almost the golden ticket if you can get that and you can connect with people on what really resonates for them. That automatically moves you up the list in terms of being a decent leader.
Man, I love that. So is there a
Yeah,
specific question that you're asking people? Is there what's how are you engaging with those people on that level?
I think just understanding, like, I'll give you an example. There used to be a guy, I almost said his name. I don't want to say his name,
Yeah,
but there used
please
to be
don't.
this guy, and he was like this hardcore, like Jeopardy guy. Like you could ask him any question in the world, and he'd know the answer to it. But truthfully, when it came to his job, he wasn't quite as devoted to it, I'll say.
Okay.
And so the first Tyler would have been like, hey, why do you spend so much time on Jeopardy, but you can't even focus on this, on your core work? You're not even hitting your metrics. Now, obviously, that's not going to be very effective with an individual like this. I think understanding that this guy liked to be right, he liked to really understand things in a tremendous amount of detail. It changed the pattern in terms of how I interacted with him. It was like, hey, what are your thoughts around how we are going to get to these numbers? Like,
Yeah, I
what are
love
the
that.
steps that you think we need to take? And so instead of me trying to be the one that was knowing it all, frankly, was letting him own the thought process and the ownership of the intelligence of it, because that was really important to him. Um, as long as it got us to the goal, I don't need to get into a battle of who's smarter of the two of us.
Sure.
It's how do we get to the goal of you being effective and adding to the business as a whole. And so that's a good example of maybe where a more extreme example, but where I had to kind of adjust. And he was a challenge. But once that kind of epiphany of treating people to where they're at and what resonated with them, it made a world of difference.
I love that. What an incredible distinction. And I appreciate the story as well. What I have found, right, it's really
Yeah,
popular to say, don't be the smartest person in the room. And I
right,
personally strive to do that. But how often, if we're really transparent, if we're really honest, how
right,
often do our actions not show that?
right,
How often do we
right,
not lead that way, right? You have this person who's cognitively has a lot of skill set. They have a great mind. Why not leverage that? And so I'm glad that you led that way, right? I'm glad that you engaged with him on that level to say, hey, why don't you take some ownership over this? Why
right,
don't you acknowledge you're not making the mark? What are your thought process to getting there? I don't have to be the smartest person in the room. The success of the business doesn't have to rise and fall on me, right? Peter Drucker, the bottlenecks are always at the top. I am the rate limiting step for growth of my organization. If I'm not expanding myself and allowing myself to engage with my leadership team, with people within my business, and giving them some ability to lead and to grow, if it all relies on me, there's only so much hours in the day that I can do.
right. The other thing I want to add to this, because I think it's a big one, um, I used to get a little annoyed whenever I would talk to people and they'd go, "Oh, well, you're managing millennials," or insert whatever
Sure.
label you want to insert. And that used to bother me because I felt like everybody deserves an opportunity and we shouldn't label them. And the minute you immediately go, well, this person's a millennial, this person that, or this person that, you're kind of throwing them into a group that you're expecting them not to perform to a certain level.
Sure.
Whether it's true, whether there's data, I don't even really care. I think everybody kind of deserves a fresh, clean slate in terms of your expectation of them and what you think they can deliver. And then let them form your opinion based on what they're actually doing or not doing rather than just what class they're in. And I used to even correct people sometimes when they'd say to me, "Oh yeah, you're managing." And I keep don't mean to pick on millennial, but that's what
Yeah,
it
sure.
at the time that came up a lot is you're managing a millennial. No wonder they're so hard. And I'm like, nah, I don't think it's that reason. There's a lot of great millennials. I'm sure there's a lot that aren't that great, but I'm confident that the ones I'm going to work with are going to be the great ones. And
Yeah,
so
I
I don't know
love that.
that's another one that
And
also
I
kind
think
of
that's
jumps to me.
incredible. I think one of the things that I say around our organization, around my family a lot, is focus takes direction, right? The
Oh
things that we
yeah.
focus on determines the direction we go. And so if I'm naturally speaking that over my employee, if I'm speaking that to my management team about an employee, right? All these things, these words that we say, they matter. I'm speaking it over myself. I'm speaking it over them. I'm going to lead them in that direction instead of speaking something. I'm not calling them. Leadership is so much about calling people to something higher, right? It's calling them into where they currently are and where they could be. And so I love that having that distinction of, let's not label that. Let's actually assign some value there to somebody and allow them to live by that and grow into that. I love that distinction. I think it's an
Right.
incredible distinction.
Because if we go in as a leader going, oh, well, this is a such and such, and they're going to do this and they're going to do that. I mean, we're almost prophesizing the way it's going to play out,
Exactly.
regardless of whether we try or we don't try. We're
Yeah.
kind of already setting the stage for it not going well. And that's a big reason why I really try hard. Because I've had many great, using millennials as an example, I've had many that are incredible employees. So
Amen.
I just don't think it applies.
Yeah, it doesn't. It
Yeah,
really doesn't. And again, it's to the culture. It's the culture that you're creating, the culture that you're
right,
creating within your business. Your
right,
business has a culture, whether you know it or not.
right,
But you intentionally creating this culture of calling people to hire, you're going to attract those type people. They're going to be drawn to working with your business as a customer, as an employee. I love that distinction. Okay, so
right.
Tyler, I'm an avid reader. That's my bookshelf behind me. For those who are watching, you notice it's pretty empty right now. It just has some deer heads on there. But my family's in the process of moving, but I love to get recommendations on different books. So if you could get, if you look across the last couple of years of books that you've read that have impacted you as a leader, it could be professionally, it could be personally. What would that book be?
Yeah, I mean, obviously E-Myth would be a big one, but
Yeah.
since we've talked about that so much, we need one different than that. My second, I would say, would be Traction, that I go back to by
Yeah.
Gino
Oh yeah.
Wickman. Go back to that time and time again. It is the greatest book in the world for, probably in a perfect world, probably a $2 million plus company. But I would even argue, if you're starting out and maybe even a solopreneur, I'd still say read it, because once you get the concept of, having meetings with a purpose, having a leadership, getting the right people in the right seat, and having a small leadership team where everybody's accountable. If you can start to think that way, even maybe it's a little premature where you're at, it will be good tools to have in your box as you continue to scale and grow.
I love that. Yeah, Traction, Traction, huge fan of EOS, the system that kind of comes out of that book. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, let's close on this, Tyler. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for your time. I appreciate your generosity there. I want to kind of wrap up with how people get connected to you. But before we get there,
Yeah.
one of the things that we love around the podcast here, we love to focus on commitments, not really the idea of a goal. A goal kind of seems more like I want to strive for a goal, but a commitment is something I'm determined to do. I'm fully committed to this process. I have buy-in. So we love to ask of other entrepreneurs, what is the commitment that you have with your business within the next 12 months?
Yeah, my number one thing is continuing to deepen client relationships. So for me, that means like very proactive financial reviews, check-in meetings, really understanding my client, not just from a business standpoint, but what makes them tick personally. Because I feel like if you really get behind that layer and understand what makes them tick personally, then that is going to tie into what their business side of things is. If you just
Yeah,
look at business, you might be missing, God forbid they're going through a divorce, or,
sure.
they've got a sick child, or all these things that are behind the scenes. And if you don't know about that, you may not be effectively advising them on just the business front.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic point. I love that commitment. So let's close on this, Tyler. If you could go back to younger Tyler and you could go back, let's say 10 years ago, we've talked a lot, we've kind of looked back and given some advice, but what's a piece of advice you would give to yourself? If you could kind of go back to you 10 years ago or so and offer some advice to yourself, what would that be?
Yeah, I would say big one is focus on system. And we're talking business, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I would say start early, focus on systems, set up systems, things that are repeatable, that are delegatable. So that's a big one. I would say invest in forecasting and cash flow management as soon as your business can sustain something like that, because that will help the growth. If you do those things and also focus around delegation and leadership, constantly hone your leadership skills. If you do those things at a younger age, or if I would have done those at a younger age, I think it would have kind of catapulted. It would have saved all those years that I had a little bit of pain and challenge of getting to that level.
Yeah.
I could have just skipped. I could have skipped and gone straight to go and got my $200.
Yeah, I love it. Good Monopoly reference there. Big Monopoly fans. Okay, so Tyler, I appreciate that. I appreciate this distinction. So somebody's been listening to this and they say, "Man, I want to talk to Tyler. I'm in that $1 to $10 million range. I need that. This is the next step for successful growth within my organization, because growth for growth's sake is kind of could be futile. But I want to successfully grow, and I want to become more profitable and become more stable. I'll be able to invest better in my business, my employees, and my family legacy." How do they get in touch with you? Please don't give out your cell phone number, but how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so CFOMadeEasy.com, CFOMadeEasy.com. There's a link on there. It's an intro meeting, 15, 20 minutes. We just kind of get to know each other, just see if it's something possibly I can help you with, understand where you're coming from. And if that does make sense and it feels like it's a good potential fit where I could support you, it leads into a little bit longer meeting where I could understand your business more.
I love that. I'll make sure we put that in the show notes. Well,
Awesome.
thank you, Tyler, brother. I appreciate your time. Appreciate the way that you're serving businesses around the world, and I appreciate that very much. Thank you for allowing me to be a guest on your podcast. Pitch both your podcasts. What are those? I'm gonna make sure that we put those in the show notes. But what are the podcasts that you run?
Yeah, and I got to learn from your hosting skills. You're a great host, by the way.
Thank you very much.
You interject great questions, and then you give your side to it. You do a good job. So I've got two podcasts that I'm one I just recently introduced, which is the one you were on, is Profit and Grit, and that's near and dear to my heart. That's for like home service type businesses,
Yeah.
and I just love that space. I have many clients in that space, so that's what that serves. And then Think Business with Tyler, I started about, I think it's either 4 or 5 years now. I just passed the 200th episode.
Congratulations! Yeah, that's
milestone.
incredible.
Yeah, thanks. And what I do is every week I interview a 7 or 8 figure business owner, and and they share their story. Usually it's around adversity or overcoming, and it's amazing. Like going through this now, I've actually probably interviewed about 230 people, but going through this, the stories you hear that people go through, and we just don't ever get the chance to really hear them, that
Yeah.
they're willing to share. Just challenges. I had one lady early on, I think she was like show 8. She actually had cancer twice,
Wow.
a matter of a year.
Wow.
Both times was told it was a death sentence. She's still alive to this day. And
Wow.
what she overcame it. This was like, I think over 10 years ago that she had it. And what she did is she created a snack company, a healthy snack company, as a way to create her why for, being able to live and getting through cancer, and hopefully helping others so we're not eating junk food and stuff. But I mean, there's just a million stories. Like I could go on, and it just blows your mind the success people have had while dealing with adversity. It's just
love
amazing.
that. Yeah, that's so cool. Well, I'll make sure those are in show notes as well.
Thanks.
So those who've listened, that make sure and find Tyler's, and I'll be excited for my episode to come out on the Profit and Grit. Thank you. Thank you, Tyler, for what you do. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for being a part here on Market Mavericks. We'll see you soon. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Market Mavericks. We hope you're walking away inspired and ready to take your own adventure to the next level. Don't forget to follow the show to keep up with our latest episodes. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe, share it with others who could benefit. And hey, if you know a market maverick who has a story that needs to be heard, please drop their name in the comments. We would love to bring their insights to the show. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries and leading with purpose.